The psychology of people who love staying at home. Have you ever felt it? A deep, profound, and almost instinctual sense of relief at the moment a social plan is cancelled. The sudden lifting of a heavy, invisible weight. The quiet, joyful, and deeply satisfying prospect of an evening, a weekend, an entire expanse of unstructured time stretching out before you, to be spent in the quiet, sacred, and deeply nourishing sanctuary of your own home. You are not antisocial, you are not depressed, you love your friends, you enjoy your life, and yet there is no place on earth, no exotic destination, no thrilling social event that can compete with the profound and restorative peace you feel when you are simply and unapologetically at home. You have likely been made to feel that this is a strange and perhaps even pathological preference. Our culture is a relentless and noisy evangelist for the gospel of the external. It worships the new, the novel, the adventurous. It tells us that a life well lived is a life of constant motion, of endless social engagement, of a perpetual and exhausting quest for the next experience. The one who stays at home is seen as the one who is missing out, the one who is living a small, timid, and fundamentally impoverished life. You have been labelled as a homebody, a term that is spoken with a mixture of affection and a kind of gentle, condescending pity. You are the domestic, the settled, the predictable in a world that fetishizes the wild, the nomadic, and the restless. But what if your love of home is not a sign of your timidity, but of your depth? What if your preference for the quiet and the familiar is not a flight from life, but a flight to it? What if the person who loves to stay at home is not the one who is missing out, but is, in fact, the only one who is truly finding anything at all? The brutal and uncomfortable truth is that our modern extroverted culture is profoundly and deeply sick. It is a culture that is addicted to distraction, that is terrified of silence, and that is in a state of frantic and desperate flight from its own inner emptiness. The person who loves to stay at home is not a refugee from the world. They are a quiet and courageous rebel, a dissident of the soul, who has, either consciously or unconsciously, chosen to reject the shallow, meaningless and soul-crushing values of our age and to embark on a different and far more profound kind of adventure. The journey into the vast, rich, and infinitely rewarding territory of their own inner world. The primal need, the home, as a psychological womb. To understand the profound psychology of the homebody, you must first understand what home truly is. It is not just a physical structure of wood and stone. It is not just a collection of furniture and possessions. From a deep, psychological, and almost spiritual perspective, the home is a womb. It is an externalized representation of the safest, most nurturing, and most generative parts of our own psyche. It is the place where the harsh, demanding, and often brutal gaze of the external world is shut out, and where the fragile, authentic, and often hidden self is finally given permission to emerge. The great psychoanalyst D.W. Winnicott spoke of the necessity of a holding environment for the healthy development of the child. This is the safe, loving, and non-demanding presence of the caregiver, which allows the child's true self to unfold. For the adult, the home becomes the primary holding environment. It is the one place in the world where we do not have to perform. We do not have to be the competent employee, the charming friend, the good and compliant citizen. We can take off the heavy, suffocating armor of our persona, the term Carl Jung used for the social mask, and we can simply and profoundly be. The person who loves to stay at home is a person who has, on a deep and often unconscious level, understood this sacred function. They are not just seeking comfort in the physical sense, They are seeking a form of profound psychological and spiritual nourishment that is almost impossible to find in the external world. The world out there is a world that demands, that judges, that constantly asks, "What can you do for me?" The home, at its best, is a space that asks for nothing. It is a space of unconditional acceptance, a space where our value is not contingent on our productivity, our charm, or our social success. Our modern, hyper-extroverted culture has forgotten this. It has taught us to see our homes not as sanctuaries for the soul, but as launching pads, as refueling stations for our next foray into the real world. We are encouraged to see the time we spend at home as downtime, as a necessary but ultimately unproductive pause in the all-important business of our external lives. The homebody knows a deeper and more ancient truth. They know that the time spent at home is not a pause from life. It is the very place where the deepest and most meaningful aspects of life actually happen. It is the place where we connect with ourselves, where we integrate our experiences, where we cultivate our souls. It is not the waiting room of life, it is the throne room. The inner kingdom, the home as a sanctuary for the introverted soul. This profound love of home is often, though not always, a signature of the introverted temperament. As Carl Jung first articulated, the introvert's primary world is the inner world of thoughts, feelings, and ideas. The external world, with its high levels of social stimulation, is a net drain on their energy resources. For the introvert, the home is not just a comfortable space, it is a vital and non-negotiable part of their psychological metabolism. It is the charging station for their very soul. To force an introvert to be constantly out there in the world of endless social engagement is not just to make them unhappy, it is to make them sick. It is to place them in a state of perpetual energetic deficit, a state of chronic and debilitating psychic exhaustion. The introvert who loves to stay at home is not being antisocial. They are being metabolically intelligent. They are honoring the deep and fundamental needs of their own nervous system. But the psychology of the homebody goes even deeper than the simple management of energy. The home, for the person with a rich inner life, becomes a kind of externalized soul. Every object, every book, every corner of the space becomes imbued with a layer of personal and symbolic meaning. The home is not just a place, it is a text, a sacred and living document that tells the story of who they are, of where they have been, and of who they are becoming. To be in this space is to be in a constant, quiet, and deeply nourishing conversation with one's own self. The books on the shelf are not just decorations. They are a collection of beloved friends, of trusted guides, of past and future selves. The art on the walls is not just an aesthetic choice. It is a series of windows into the deep, archetypal world of the soul. Even the simple, mundane act of tending to this space, of cleaning, of organizing, of gardening, is a form of active meditation, a way of tending to the inner world by tending to the outer one. This is a form of wealth, a form of profound and rooted happiness that our nomadic, experience-obsessed culture has almost entirely forgotten how to value. We have been taught that a rich life is a wide life, a life of many places, of many people, of many experiences. The homebody knows that a rich life can also be a deep life, a life of a few cherished places, a few deep relationships, and a profound and endlessly fascinating engagement with the single, great, and ultimate adventure, the journey into the self. Their love of staying at home is not a rejection of the world. It is a rejection of the shallow, frantic, and ultimately meaningless way in which the world has taught us to live in it. The shadow of the homebody. The dangers of the fortress. This deep and profound love of home, however, is not without its own shadow. The very thing that is a source of strength and nourishment can, if it is not held in a conscious and balanced way, become a prison. The sanctuary can become a fortress. The womb can become a tomb. For some, the love of staying at home is not born of a rich inner life, but of a profound and terrifying fear of the outer world. This is the psychology of the agoraphobic, the social anxious, the person for whom the external world is not just draining, but is a place of profound and unbearable threat. Their home is not a sanctuary they have chosen, it is a bunker they have retreated into. Their solitude is not a source of nourishment, it is a symptom of a deep and unhealed wound. This is not the psychology of the creative introvert, it is the psychology of the traumatized exile. For others, the home becomes a tool of the ego's desperate need for control. The world out there is chaotic, unpredictable, and full of other people who will not conform to our desires. The home, in contrast, is a space that we can, at least in theory, completely control. We can control the environment, we can control the schedule, we can control the inputs. For the person with a deep and terrified need for control, the home becomes a kind of miniature totalitarian state, with themselves as the anxious and obsessive dictator. Their love of home is not a love of peace, it is a love of power, a desperate and ultimately futile attempt to create a small, perfect, and completely lifeless world that is safe from the chaotic and beautiful mess of reality. And for some, the home becomes a place of profound and decadent stagnation. It becomes the palace of the last man, the creature that the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche warned of, the one whose only goal is a life of quiet, comfortable, and utterly meaningless ease. This is the person who uses the comfort of their home not as a base for their own becoming, but as an escape from it. Their home is a womb from which they refuse to be born. They surround themselves with the soft, warm, and endlessly distracting pleasures of the modern world, the streaming services, the food delivery apps, the endless scroll, and they allow their own potential, their own life's calling, to slowly and quietly suffocate under a mountain of comfortable pillows. Their love of home is not a sacred act, it is a slow and comfortable form of suicide, the path of the conscious homebody. The integration of the inner and outer worlds. What then is the path of the healthy and integrated homebody? How does one cultivate a deep and nourishing relationship with the home without falling into the shadow traps of fear, of control, and of stagnation? The answer lies in the great and difficult work of integration. The goal is not to choose the inner world over the outer world, but to build a strong, conscious, and dynamic bridge between the two. The first step on this path is a radical and unapologetic self-acceptance. You must be willing to honor your own innate temperament. If you are an introvert, if you are a person who needs a great deal of solitude to thrive, you must stop seeing this as a flaw. You must refuse the constant shaming pressure of our extroverted culture to be someone you are not. You must have the courage to claim your love of home, not as a guilty secret, but as a legitimate and essential part of who you are. The second step is to consciously and deliberately transform your home from a passive space of consumption into an active space of creation. Your home should not be a museum of your past self or a comfortable coffin for your present self. It should be a laboratory for your future self. It should be the place where you are engaged in the difficult and joyful work of your own becoming. This means filling your home not just with things that are comfortable, but with things that are challenging. It means turning off the television and turning on the pottery wheel. It means clearing a space for the yoga mat, for the writing desk, for the musical instrument. It means seeing your home not as a place to escape from the world, but as the place from which you will create the unique and beautiful gift that you will eventually offer to the world. Finally, and most crucially, the conscious homebody must learn the art of the rhythmic pulse. They must learn to move between the inner and the outer worlds with a conscious and deliberate rhythm. The home is the place of the inward breath, the place of restoration, of integration, of the quiet and sacred work of the soul. But there must also be an outward breath. There must be a journey out into the world, a journey to gather new experiences, to test one's ideas, to engage with the messy and unpredictable reality of other human beings. And then there must be the return home, to digest, to integrate, to make meaning of what has been gathered. This is the rhythm of a healthy and creative life. It is the rhythm of the tides, of the seasons, of the human heart itself. The person who loves to stay at home is not the one who is stuck on the inward breath. They are the one who has understood that the inward breath is just as important, just as vital, and just as sacred as the outward one. They have refused to live the shallow, frantic, and perpetually hyperventilating life that our modern world demands. They have chosen, instead, a deeper, slower, and more ancient breath. They have chosen to honor the sacred and necessary rhythm of the soul. And in that quiet, simple, and deeply revolutionary choice lies the secret to a life that is not just successful, but is, in the truest and most profound sense of the word, a home for the self.